Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. This is a deck I'm really excited to show you guys. I've always thought Revive Goku is really cool since it's been released. Now, I do want to preface this video with saying that I saw Brian Samuel's list on Super Players. Shout out to all those guys. They're awesome. I was a little discouraged after seeing how similar our lists were because it almost made me feel like I shouldn't bring you guys the lists, because I have had this idea since the set was spoiled even before it came out, and this is kind of me fleshing it out now that I've been able to play with it at locals and whatnot. But I wanted to say, like, you know, for better or for worse, I'm going to bring you guys my version of the deck. It's a little bit different. I do want to shout out Brian Samuel and the guys at Super Players for coming up with a similar deck. I mean, I guess you could say great minds think alike. But with that being said, I just wanted to preface that, make it known that I have seen that these are similar lists. I do think this is probably one of the best ways to play Revive Goku. There are a few different ways you can do it, but I think this is probably the best, one of the best ways, one of the strongest ways to play the deck. So that being said, guys, we're getting to this deck profile. We're going to talk about a few things. We're talking about the deck profile. We're going to talk about the deck's strengths and weaknesses. We're also going to talk about budget alternatives for specific things in this deck, and you might be seeing weird choices in the main deck right now. That's all part of that, so make sure you stay to the end if you guys want to know all that good stuff. With that being said, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. Want to get involved in the Dragon Ball Super community, make sure to check out the Discord in the description below. And finally, guys, 3 ways you can help the channel out. Number 1, the Patreon down below, lots of competitive content for you guys. Number 2, if you'd like to buy any of the cards you see on this list, make sure to use my link to TCG Player or Bearded Collectibles down below. Finally, guys, the YouTube channel membership button is down there. All that stuff helps out a lot. Really appreciate each and every one of you guys that does that for me. With that being said, we'll get into this deck. So Kaio-Ken Goku, Revive Goku, Ken is another weird name. I'm kind of working for it. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Let me know in the comments below what names you guys think sounds cool for this. Revive Ku or Riku. Riku, that's pretty cool. Anyways, we've got Son Goku. I wish his unawakened art was a little cooler, but his awakened art is freaking awesome. So auto, when this card attacks, delete a card, draw 1. Auto, once per turn, when one of your battle cards activates Revive, draw 1, which is so awesome. Like, they introduced this Revive mechanic, which costs a card or potentially 2 cards out of your hand, and this leader just synergizes really well with that strategy. I like that a lot. Awaken, when your life's to 4 or less, draw 1 card, then choose 1 energy, switch it to active mode, and then flip this card over. Kaio-Ken Goku, turning the tide, auto, attack, draw a card. Auto, once per turn, one of your battle cards activates Revive, draw 2 cards. So that's awesome. Like, you're just getting a ton of draw power in this deck, because eventually, well, with the next effect, activate main once per turn, choose one of your blue-green multicolor battle cards in rest mode, and until the start of your next main phase, as long as the chosen card is in rest mode, your opponent's card cannot attack leader cards. So you basically take one of your blue-greens and turn it into a deadly defender, which is actually really funny when you have the Vegeta Secret Rare on the board. But with that being said, we're going to get into the main deck. So knowing that the leader works with Revive, that's what we're trying to do. Obviously, off the rip, you see 4 Xeno buttons. Now, of course, this is a Xeno button deck. You're playing a color combination that includes blue, and it's multicolor, so you have a lot of flexibility in your energy, and you're a green leader. You know, the blue-green decks like 21, 18, they can't necessarily abuse Xeno button as well, because they are blue. They are weak to TN, and TN just shuts off Xeno button completely. But when you're green, your opponent either has to not play TN or tap out for 4 for it. So Xeno button picks up a ton of value in these decks. I know a lot of people play 3 button. I always want to play 4 because, you know, I want to kind of get a little greedy, play a few more 10Ks. And I want to just always make sure I have it. You know, against most decks, this card is increasingly powerful. So I want 4. 4 Weeks Coercion, again, like Brian Samuel said, I completely agree with him. In my testing, Shocking Death Ball has not been super relevant. I mean, it sucks that, like, you know, for Weeks Coercion, you can't take the life to use it sometimes. But, like, you're playing blue, so you have a lot of energy manipulation that doesn't always come up for the most part. So you could always sideboard Shocking Death Ball, because you could just side into those green negates. It is your sparking negate. You could bring those in against decks that swing with a lot of 2-drops or less, but for the most part, Weeks Coercion has been a lot better. Senzu being at 4, blue staple, you're gonna play it. 3 Kaio-Ken, Strenuous Onslaught. So you guys see the card right next to him. We're playing Gogeta Hero Revived, and I think this deck is really cool, because I do like defensive mid-rangey decks. It's kind of unfortunate that Gogeta Hero Revived is like the best wing condition for the deck. I was messing around with U7 Beerus, but while that card is super strong, it does fall into a ditch against like things like Mutaito, not usually Mutaito, I guess, but it does fall into a ditch against things like the Chomp of the Trickster, things of that nature. So kind of unfortunate that this is just the best way to win the game with this deck. But you do have your Vegetas and Gokus at 15k, so it just makes tons of sense. Strenuous Onslaught Goku, which helps you get awakened, and the fact that this guy untaps an energy means that like the turn you awaken, he was basically a 1-drop 20k, which is really sick. And you want to leave a lot of energy up for defense anyway, so the fact that you don't get the energy till your opponent's turn, that's pretty much fine, doesn't really matter. But he's there for when you do need to awaken. I will say this deck is not super aggressive, and that's one of the weaknesses we'll talk about with this deck, is that it can't really pivot to aggro. It's pretty much always going to be a mid-range strategy, so you could struggle theoretically against something like Shenron Gogeta or some type of mid-range Shenron deck, maybe like Shenron Victory Strike. But even Shenron Victory Strike is not as bad. But Shenron Gogeta in particular, while I do think that deck is very, very weak right now, this deck can struggle against that. You could actually sideboard ramp options like Objection to kind of counteract that, but you don't have the necessary aggression in your main deck to go after a deck like Shenjita. So you could sideboard things like Newfound Power Sun Gohan, other aggressive 1-drops, maybe like Awakening Talent Pan. But for the most part, the way the format is shaped up at this very moment, we're playing this as a very, very mid-rangey build. So Gogeta 7 is your top end. You just play defense, get to 5 energy, you drop this guy, or you drop your SS4 Vegeta Secret Rare. You use those cards to clean up the game and win from there. At the start of our dual colors, we have 4 Android 17 Protector of Wildlife. It's your free energy, you're going to play it. Then we have 3 Son Goku Spirit of the Planet, coupled with 3 Son Goku and Piccolo Pupil and Master. So these are our main low cost dual colors. You will obviously charge them turn 1 if you see them, but for the most part, we're turning these guys into deadly defenders. They're activating Revive, so we're drawing off our leader effect. Now on the unawakened side, of course, your opponent can bypass Revive because they don't have to attack your Revive cards. But on the backside, you force them to do it. And Son, Gohan, and Piccolo, Master, and Pupil, this has barrier, so they can't effectively remove it without KOing it. Like, one of the ways to get around Revive is for your opponent to warp your battle cards with, like, Dimensional Vanisher Fu or Mass and Mysterious Warrior. The fact that this guy has barrier is perfect. Makes him one of your ideal deadly defender target, so to speak. And then your Son Goku, Spirit of the Planet. This card is very, very interesting. It's not the most threatening thing off the face of it, like just a 2-drop 15k, you know, decent stats, whatever. But the longer this thing lives on the board, the more threatening it is, because once your opponent's at that 3 or 4 life range, every time you attack with this, it's either going to demand a negate or you're going to pay 2 energy, give it plus 10k and triple strike, and put a really threatening swing on your opponent. Because again, you're playing button, you have a lot of energy and manipulation, so you don't mind tapping that blue and that green for that effect. That's really worth it for you to put that pressure on. And if they don't remove this guy from the board, he's going to be a growing problem. But again, he doesn't have barrier, so he can get warped if your opponent's playing warp removal. And for the most part, you're going to turn your Piccolo into your deadly defender. But for the rest of our blue-green cards, we do also have 2 Son Goku, Son Gohan, Sands of Earth. Now, if I'm not wrong, I don't think Brian Samuel's list was playing this card, and to be completely honest, I don't know exactly how I feel about it yet. It's been cool. It's only a 2 of, because there are niche moments where you want to, you know, have that mid-battle interruption. Ramping your opponent's a bit weird. Sometimes it's very, very inoptimal, but the removal mid-battle does come up a lot. You can catch your opponent off guard with it. It can win you a game if they combo all in on an attack and you just play this guy. The fact that he hits 5 costs and less is really, really valuable. And the fact that he makes your opponent discard a card, I like that a lot. It does suck that this guy is weak to, this whole deck in general, I guess, is kind of weak to Mercenary Tau, but you do have easy removal in the form of Double Impact Krillin, so make sure those are in your side deck for sure. You're going to want those, but I like it. And then of course we talked about it, the SS4 Vegeta. The defensive capabilities of this card really good as well, especially with Zeno button. You could tap out for Gogeta 7 on turn 5. You know, maybe it doesn't kill the opponent, maybe they negate it, maybe they chomp the Trickster it, Mutaito, whatever. Then you on defense, Zeno button, you have 5 energy. You get to use SS Vegeta's defensive effect that lets you ramp 2 energy, which is not too important, but you also get to take any of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and place in the drop area. So, you know, you're interrupting that battle and you're just not losing to anything that they play, which is pretty nuts. So going along with the rest of the deck, 1 Champa, 1 Focus Breakthrough, a few good 1-ofs. Champa's just there for when you do amass that ginormous hand, your opponent's at that 2 life, or maybe you're swinging with something that you want to put them to 2, put them to 3, whatever the case is. That 1 Champa is pretty solid. The 1 Focus Breakthrough, I do think Panther Strike is better in this particular format for a few reasons. In a deck like Kaio-Ken Goku, where you can't super easily control your Awaken, Breakthrough can be dead a lot of the time, so we're playing it at 1 for that reason. And then Panther Strike, I think it is much more alive more of the time, especially against Baby. If you just keep 2 greens up for their rival Baby, they have to have 2 of them in their hand to play around this, and they don't always have that. And even if they do have it, that means they're not playing their complete monkey combo on turn 2. They won't have appropriate energy to do that, so you pretty much catch them off guard in that regard. Then we have Defending Father Paragus, the super combo you're going to play because it's green. A lot of these cards just, you know, blue-green staples, of course, but we're getting into the more intricate stuff in a second. Kawaii Keymaster. Now, a few lists I've seen here and there, of course, it's a button deck. They're going to play Infernal Villainy Cell. I do like Kawaii Keymaster instead of Cell. I mean, you could always interchange this, or maybe sideboard Cell or sideboard this, whatever the case is, but you know, you have a ton of draw power. Your leader activates and draws when you activate Revive, and on the backside you basically force your opponent to let you draw cards when they attack into your Deadly Defender, so you're gonna have the excess card advantage. I would rather get Kawaii Keymaster onto the board instead of Infernal Villainy Cell, just to have more threats, more board presence. I think that's really important. I've really liked Kawaii Keymaster in my testing, but this could definitely be Infernal Villainy Cell. Then we have 4 Vegeta the Cruel. This is our 15k Vegeta. It's so funny to me how like we have a Saiyan Saga Vegeta and like a really early on Goku that are fusing into Gogeta. Just makes like almost no sense, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, Vegeta the Cruel, one of your best counterplays for green. Of course you're going to play it. And then finally, guys, 3 Kami's Power Piccolo. Now you would have seen in Brian Samuel's list, or most lists that play green in general, they're playing Piccolo Assimilated Ability. I don't know if you guys saw the recent buyout, and it probably went down at the time of posting this video, but this guy was at about $100 a copy, and there's no way it's going to stay that expensive. That's just not possible. It's not feasible. But I actually really think that Kami's Power Piccolo is a good budget alternative to Piccolo Assimilated Ability for a few reasons, especially in this deck. Maybe not so much in like Android 21 or Android 18, but in this deck in particular, you already have the draw power, like I said before, off of your leader, so you don't necessarily need the draw power off Piccolo Assimilated Ability. Now what Kami's Power Piccolo does is it's a barrier double strike, so you get double strike, which you don't get with Assimilated Ability. Activate main once per turn, bond 2, which is the same requirements as Piccolo Assimilated Ability. You get to KO one of your opponent's battle cards, period. Doesn't care about energy cost, anything like that. Now the only thing you're losing out, or a few things you're losing out without playing Assimilated Ability, is you're not popping on both players' turns and you're not drawing cards. Now what I will say is, against a seasoned player, against a better player, they're going to play around that bond 2 or that activate battle by just not playing battle cards that you can pop, right? Like if it's just not worth it for them to swing with a battle card, they just won't do it, and you're going to lose out on those draws. So in a sense, if they're playing around that anyway, you might as well just play Kami's Power Piccolo, which will remove any threat you want once per turn. Of course, only during your turn, but I do think this is a great budget alternative. I'm actually going to move forward with this list playing Kami's Power just to really see how good of a budget alternative it is. And the SPRs as well. At the time of recording this video, they're only $3 per copy, guys. At the threat of starting another buyout, I would recommend you guys go buy these Kami Power Piccolo SPRs. Beautiful looking SPR, one of my favorite in the game, and it's a super strong card in my opinion. Great budget alternative to Piccolo Assimilated Ability, especially in this list. So we've talked about a few weaknesses, we've talked about budget alternatives, a few strengths. I think this is one of the most like strong defensive decks in the entire game. Like if you look at defensive decks in the game, blue yellow comes to mind, like whether it's blue yellow Gohan like I played for Nationals, or whether it's blue yellow Broly. I think this deck almost has that outclassed because you do have a strong counterplay in the form of Panther Strike. You have Deadly Defenders that draw you cards. You have rivals that interrupt battle. You don't have the Bardock Monkey, but there is play around to the Bardock Monkey depending on how your opponent plays their turn out, or if you want to offensively Bardock Monkey, they can interrupt that with like Weskai or Jocko. You're playing one of the strongest boss monsters in the game, Gogeta Hero Revived, backed up by one of the craziest offensive and defensive SCRs in the game, SS4 Vegeta. So in my opinion, this is one of the best mid-range defensive decks in the game at the moment. And I know Brian Samuel top 32'd with it. I think if more people played this deck, I think it would really shine into the top cut, because we do have really aggressive decks like Baby. We do have really aggressive decks in other parts of the format. But I do think mid-range defense is where this deck wants to shine. I do think a weakness of this deck is something Shenron Gogeta, but not something you necessarily have to worry about, because that deck seems to have fallen off the wayside until it gets like, you know, someone to revamp it or someone to revitalize it, things like that. But overall, guys, this is the deck list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you would change, how you're playing the deck. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.